All right, get ready to unlock some genetic secrets today as we take a deep dive into inheritance. And we're not just talking about the basics, like dominant and recessive genes.
Right.
We're going to explore how multiple traits, lots of different traits can get passed down from generation to generation.
Yeah, it's kind of like, think of it like weaving a really complex tapestry,
Oh, high five.
where each thread is representing a different gene, contributing to the overall pattern.
Okay, and so to get us started, we really have to talk about the OG of genetics, Gregor Mendel.
Yeah, absolutely.
He didn't stop at just observing single traits. He actually took it a step further with what we call a dihybrid cross.
Right.
And so for his experiments, he used pea plants.
Yeah, good old peas.
Yeah, good old peas,
Mhm.
focusing on two specific traits.
Right.
So their shape, which could be either round or wrinkled, and also their color, which could be either yellow or green.
And he started with purebred plants, right?
Yeah.
So they consistently produced, the same traits generation after generation.
Okay.
So he took a round yellow pea plant and he crossed it with a wrinkled green pea plant.
Okay, and so based on our basic understanding of dominant and recessive traits, what do you think happened in that first generation of offspring?
Well, if we assume that round and yellow are dominant, I would guess that all the offspring would be round and yellow, right?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
They would inherit those dominant alleles from both parents.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Mendel observed. It was like the recessive traits for wrinkled and green just disappeared.
Vanished.
But here's the thing. They were just hidden, right?
Oh,
Each of those first generation plants, they still carried those recessive genes,
interesting.
but they weren't expressed. The
Right.
dominant traits were kind of masking them.
They're kind of in the background.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's where things get really interesting, when we look at that second generation.
All right, so what happened? What happened when Mendel crossed those first generation plants with each other?
Well, the recessive traits, they made a comeback, right?
They did.
Oh, yeah.
They reappeared.
In that second generation, we see a mix. We see a mix of round yellow peas, round green peas, wrinkled yellow peas, and even those wrinkled green peas.
Wow, so all the different
All
combinations.
combinations, and that's pretty amazing in itself.
Yeah, it is.
But what's even more remarkable is the specific ratio.
Okay, what was it?
It was 9.3.3.1. So out of every 16 offspring, 9 would be round and yellow, 3 would be round and green, 3 would be wrinkled and yellow, and then only 1 would be wrinkled and green.
Wow, that's a pretty specific ratio, and there has to be a reason behind that, right?
Absolutely, there is. And this observation, this really specific observation, is what led Mendel to a groundbreaking discovery.
Oh, what was it?
It's called the law of independent assortment.
Okay.
And this law states that different genes for different traits are inherited independently of each other.
Wait, so you're telling me that inheriting one trait doesn't influence what you get for another trait?
That's right. They're not linked. They're inherited independently.
That's kind of mind-blowing to think about.
Think about it like choosing an outfit from your closet.
Okay.
Choosing a particular shirt doesn't determine which pants you're going to wear.
Right.
They're independent choices.
Right.
In the same way, inheriting a gene for, say, your eye color doesn't determine the gene that you inherit for hair color.
Oh, okay, so they're totally separate.
They're separate. And this concept, it was a game changer. It revolutionized our understanding of inheritance.
Okay, so going back to Mendel's peas for a second.
Yeah.
Let's say we have a pea plant, and we know that it has the dominant traits, so it's round and yellow.
Right.
Is there a way for us to figure out if it's actually carrying those hidden recessive genes?
Yes, there is. And that's where a really clever technique called a test cross comes in.
A test cross.
Yeah. What we do is we take that plant with the unknown genotype.
Right.
The one that's round and yellow, but we're not sure what recessive genes it's carrying. And we cross it with a plant that we know for sure has the recessive traits. So a wrinkled and green pea plant.
Oh, okay. So we're using a plant with those recessive traits as a way to figure out the secrets of the other plant's genes.
Exactly. By looking at the offspring of that test cross, we can actually decipher the genotype of the original plant.
Oh, I see.
So let's say some of the offspring from that test cross end up with wrinkled green peas.
Okay.
That tells us, oh, the original plant must have been carrying those recessive genes.
Even though it was showing those dominant traits.
Exactly, even though it was round and yellow.
Oh,
It must have had those hidden recessive genes for wrinkled and green.
This is starting to feel like a genetic detective story.
It is. Genetics is full of mysteries waiting to be unraveled. And the really cool thing is that these principles that we're talking about, these apply not just to peas, but to us, to humans.
Oh, wait.
Oh, yeah.
Wait, so you mean that those same rules of inheritance that we're seeing in pea plants are at work in humans?
Yeah.
Hold on. So that means...
It means that the incredible complexity and diversity that we see in humans, all those different traits and variations, it's partly thanks to these fundamental principles of inheritance.
Wow.
But of course, it's not quite as simple as with peas.
Right. I would imagine not.
Humans are a bit more complicated.
A little bit more complex. Okay, so we've established that Mendel's discoveries with those pea plants were like total game changers for genetics.
Yeah.
But like any good scientific story, there's always more to the plot.
Absolutely.
So it turns out there are other inheritance patterns out there that add a whole bunch more twists and turns to this whole genetic tale.
Right. Mendel's work was really foundational,
Yeah.
But it doesn't quite capture the full picture of inheritance, especially when we consider, all the diversity beyond just peas, right?
So what are some of these other, inheritance patterns, these other ways that genes can be passed down?
Okay, well, let's start with incomplete dominance.
Okay.
Remember how in Mendel's experiments, one allele, one version of a gene always completely dominated the other?
Right, yeah.
It was a clear winner, winner takes all.
Right, the dominant one just took over.
Exactly. But in incomplete dominance, it's more like a compromise.
Oh, so it's not a clear winner.
Not so clear cut, no.
I like where this is going.
Yeah, so think of it like blending colors.
Okay.
So imagine you're crossing a red snapdragon flower
Okay.
with a white one.
All right.
Now, if red were truly dominant, like in Mendel's peas, we would expect all the offspring to be red, right?
Right, because the red would just mask the white completely.
Exactly, but that's not what happens.
Okay, so then what color do we get? What happens?
We get pink.
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 Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so the red and the white alleles, they both exert their influence, right?
Okay.
They kind of blend together, and they create this intermediate phenotype, this pink color.
So instead of one just completely masking the other, they sort of meet in the middle.
Exactly. They meet in the middle, and they create something new.
That's pretty cool.
It is. Okay, now let's switch gears and talk about another pattern.
Okay.
This one's called codominance.
Codominance.
And in this case, both alleles, both versions of the gene are fully expressed.
Okay, so no compromise this time.
No compromise. They both get to, show their stuff.
Right.
So a classic example of this is the ABO blood group system in humans.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You've probably heard of, the different blood types, AB, and O.
Yeah, definitely rings a bell. I've heard of those.
Yeah, so the A and B alleles, they're codominant.
Okay.
So if someone inherits an A allele from one parent and a B allele from the other parent, they end up with blood type AB.
Oh, okay.
So both alleles are expressed equally, leading to, the presence of both A and B antigens on their red blood cells.
Got it. So it's not a blending of traits like an incomplete dominance. It's more like both traits are just, on full display.
Yeah, side by side, both contributing equally.
Okay, I think I'm getting that. So is there anything else? Are there other, funky inheritance patterns out there?
Oh, yeah, there are. You ready for another layer of complexity?
Hit me with it.
Let's talk about epistasis.
Epistasis, okay. That sounds kind of intimidating.
It's simpler than it sounds, I promise.
Okay.
Basically, epistasis is when the expression of one gene is influenced by another gene.
Okay, so one gene can, affect how another gene is expressed.
Exactly. Think of it like a genetic hierarchy.
Oh.
Where one gene can kind of override or modify the effects of another gene.
So one gene is kind of the boss telling another gene what to do?
That's a great analogy, yeah.
Okay.
A classic example of this is coat color in Labrador retrievers.
Oh, the dogs?
Yeah. So one gene determines the pigment color, whether it's black or brown. But then another gene controls whether that pigment is actually deposited in the fur.
Wait, hold on. So a dog could have the gene for black pigment, but then another gene could, step in and say, nope, no pigment allowed.
Exactly.
And the dog ends up with a different coat color altogether.
Exactly. That's epistasis in action.
So that second gene is like an override switch.
Yeah, like an override switch. So even if a dog has the gene for black pigment, if that other gene, the one that controls pigment deposition, is turned off, that black pigment won't be expressed.
Wow, so genetics is a really complex puzzle
It is.
with all these different pieces influencing each other.
Yeah, and we've only just scratched the surface.
Really?
There are even more intricate inheritance patterns out there, like sex-linked inheritance, polygenic inheritance. It's
Wow.
all contributing to the incredible diversity that we see in the natural world.
It's amazing to think that, all these different mechanisms are at work,
Yeah.
shaping who we are and what we look like, from our eye color to, like, our predisposition to certain traits.
It's a constant interplay of genes. It's
Yeah.
pretty remarkable.
It is. It really is. All right, so we've spent, like, the last almost hour
Mhm.
talking about all these different inheritance patterns, how genes are passed down.
Yeah.
But now I kind of want to go back around to us,
Right.
connect these concepts to, like, our own lives.
Yeah, and a great way to do that is through genetic testing.
Okay, so genetic testing has been getting a lot of attention lately, but honestly, it still feels kind of like a black box to me.
Mm.
So what exactly is genetic testing, and, like, what kind of information can we actually learn from it?
So imagine your DNA, all those genes, as like this super detailed instruction manual,
Okay.
right? Packed with information about you.
Yeah.
Genetic testing is kind of like reading specific chapters in that manual,
Okay.
looking for clues like about your health, your ancestry, even predispositions to certain traits.
Okay, so it's not like one giant test that tells you everything.
No, no, no.
It's more targeted.
It's more targeted. There are all sorts of genetic tests out there, each designed to answer specific questions.
Got it. So some tests might look at, like, single genes, while others might analyze patterns across your whole genome.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. So what kind of insights can we actually gain from these tests? Like, why do people even get genetic testing in the first place?
Well, one of the big reasons, and a really important one, is to assess the risk of certain diseases.
Okay, so, like, if you're worried about, I don't know, heart disease or something, you could get a test to see if you're genetically predisposed to it.
Exactly. For example, there are tests that can identify mutations in genes like BRCA1 and BRCA2,
Okay.
and those are associated with a higher risk of breast and ovarian cancer.
And so, like, knowing that information, knowing if you're at a higher risk, that could empower you to take preventative measures
Absolutely.
or, like, make more informed decisions about your health.
It's all about being proactive,
Right.
Early detection, lifestyle modifications, those can make a world of difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So what other, like, health-related info can these tests tell us? Can they help, like, diagnose existing conditions?
Yes, definitely. They can be really helpful in diagnosing those rare genetic disorders.
Okay.
So, for instance, if a child is showing developmental delays or some unusual physical characteristics, genetic testing can often pinpoint the underlying genetic cause.
Oh, wow.
And that can lead to more targeted treatments and better support.
So it's like having this, like, powerful tool to solve these medical mysteries.
Exactly. And beyond just diagnosis, genetic testing can also be used to, like, guide treatment decisions.
Oh,
So
interesting.
you know how some medications, they're metabolized differently depending on your genes?
Yeah.
Knowing your genetic profile can really help doctors choose the most effective drugs, the right dosages, and that can minimize side effects, maximize the chances of success with those treatments.
Wow. So it's like personalized medicine tailored to your specific genes.
That's the direction we're heading in, towards more personalized, more precise healthcare. And beyond just the health stuff, genetic testing can also tell us about our ancestry.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Help us trace those genetic roots, connect with relatives we never even knew we had.
It's fascinating how genetic testing can, like, connect the past and present.
It really does. Underscores that interconnectedness of life, how we're all part of this vast genetic tapestry.
Yeah, I like that.
And, beyond just personal insights, genetic testing is driving some amazing scientific discoveries.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Researchers are using these massive genetic databases to, like, unlock secrets about human evolution, disease mechanisms, even the origins of life itself.
It's mind-blowing to think about the possibility, but with all these, like, benefits and breakthroughs, I imagine there are also, like, some ethical considerations that we need to be mindful of, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Access to such personal information, our genetic information, raises all these important questions about privacy, potential discrimination, even the psychological impact of knowing your genetic predispositions.
Right, it's a lot to process, and it sounds like we really need to approach genetic testing thoughtfully and responsibly.
Definitely. We need to weigh the benefits, but also be aware of those ethical implications.
Well, we've covered so much ground today, from the basics of inheritance with those pea plants all the way to the cutting-edge world of genetic testing.
Yeah, it's been a journey.
It really has.
Mhm.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what like the one big takeaway that really stands out to you?
For me, it's realizing how far our understanding of inheritance has come,
Yeah.
from Mendel and those pea plants to now, being able to actually look into our own genetic code, unlocking all these secrets about our health, ancestry, and who we are. It's incredible.
And it's like a good reminder that even though genes play a huge role in shaping who we are, they don't define our destiny.
Right.
It's our choices, our environment, our experiences. They all contribute to making us the unique individuals we are.
It's this beautiful interplay of nature and nurture.
Yeah.
It really highlights the complexity and the wonder of life.
Well said. And with that thought, we're going to wrap up our deep dive into inheritance. We hope this has sparked your curiosity and given you a new appreciation for the fascinating world of genetics.